Wow, it's the start of a brand new week. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Happy Monday. I hope you all, as I always say, had a great weekend. I hope the start of your week is as beautiful and as amazing as you. Welcome to another episode of Monday Evening Quarterback. My name is Christian Simpson, and I am the creator. I'm the founder. I'm the NFL and college football analyst for a brand that I created on September 6th, 2010, called The Daily Blitz, where we specialize in all things football 24/7, 365. I'm also a radio contributor. I do contribute to quite a few shows. I'm a blogger. I do own a merchandise line. Make sure you guys go get a t-shirt. Got a Black Friday sale coming up. If you need the link to our merch shop, let me know and I will gladly send that to you. And just like many of you, I'm a junkie. When I'm not having to analyze or work, I'm watching the games and I'm enjoying it just as much as a fan. That's how much I love the game of football and this sport overall. So yeah, I love the game. So glad to always be here to give you guys my take and my perspective on certain things that happen in college football and the NFL. If you've been following along, as always, thank you. And if this is your first time tuning in, one, welcome. Two, if you were referred to me, thank you for taking the referral. But most importantly, thank you to the person who gave you the referral. I greatly appreciate you both. Before you even do anything else, and if you're liking what you're hearing, this goes for everybody. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. I am going to get it back on Spotify. Just kind of dealing with some things with that right now. Not going into it, but just know, my craft and everything that I do is very important to me, and I have built up a following and I want to keep that following. I don't want to let anybody down. But with that being said, here's how the show's going to go. We're going to talk about everything that caught my eye in week 12 of college football. After this past Saturday, we only have 2 college football Saturdays left in the regular season before it's Conference Championship Saturday, which is my personal favorite day of the entire season. And then it'll be playoff time, and the road to a national championship will be starting in December. I don't know about you guys, but I do like this 12-team playoff bracket. It's much better than the 4. The possibilities are just far more intriguing, I'll say. With that being said, let's dive right in. Week 12, college football. Game day went to Pittsburgh. For Notre Dame and Pittsburgh was a big day for the Pittsburgh Panthers. One of the best that I've seen do it. He's actually one of the 5 best defensive players I've seen in my lifetime, and that's Aaron Donald. I want someone to finish my little comment in the comments when you go to listen and watch this episode of MEQ, because I'm not going to always say it. But y'all know. He played his college ball at Pittsburgh, and he was getting his number retired. He was the guest picker for game day. Retirement seems to be doing him well. Glad he was able to kind of walk off on his own power. And it is what it is. But I wish the Pittsburgh Panthers got the memo that there was a football game, because they didn't even bother to show up. I want to say this about Notre Dame, and I've mentioned this a couple times off the air on College Football Showdown. I've said that Notre Dame, they're 4 points away from being one of the remaining unbeaten teams. And what I mean by that is they lost by 3 to the Miami Hurricanes in week 1, and then lost by a point to Texas A&M. And I remember saying they were going to win out, and they have won 8 in a row. They won that game against Pittsburgh on Saturday, 37-15. At one point, this was a 37-9 game. I don't know. Like, Notre Dame, they just seem to really be settling in. And they're giving Jeremiah Love the football. Making him the focal point of this offense is going to make life so much easier for CJ Carr. 21-32, 212 yards passing. He did throw 2 touchdowns, but he also threw 2 interceptions. And Jeremiah Love, 23 carries, $147, and 1 touchdown. Yeah, this is Notre Dame's bread and butter. Run the football. Plain and simple. Don't try and do things you know you're not capable of doing. Don't jump out your box. And unfortunately, a lot of football teams have a tendency to do that. Like I said, Pittsburgh just didn't bother to show up. Notre Dame dominates this game, and I think they're going to win out. I mean, we're not going to write this team off. This is a group that finished as the national runner-up last year. They played in the national championship. And Marcus Freeman, he's a really good coach. He's going to get his men ready and motivated to play. Let's see. Texas Tech dominating UCF. There's really not a lot I have to say about that game because the proof is in the stats. Texas Tech is really good. 48-9. Excuse me. 48-9. Finishing the job, handling their business. Baron Morton really didn't have to do a lot. 14-20, 149 yards, and he did throw for a touchdown. Texas Tech is a team I'm really going to be watching come playoff time because they're balanced. They can win a game in different ways. They can muck it up, as I commonly say, and turn the game into a dogfight, or they can turn it into a track meet, a shootout, run and gun, push the ball up and down the field. But I like the fact that they're really like the jack of all trades when it comes to these games, because you just never know what you're gonna get from them. The Indiana Hoosiers, they're 11-0 for the first time in school history. Fernando Mendoza, I think, all but wrapped up the Heisman. Listen to these numbers here. 22-24, 299 yards passing, and 4 touchdowns. That's more touchdowns than incompletions. Let that sink in. Indiana beat Wisconsin. Well, who hasn't beat Wisconsin? 31-7. Miami handled their business against North Carolina State. Probably the most intriguing game of the day. It took place in the SEC. Texas A&M and South Carolina. I think South Carolina was poised to kind of, I don't want to say take that next step, but they were going to make things interesting in the SEC. But they really struggled this year. Excuse me. Looked like this was going to be an upset in College Station for a quick second. Lenoris Sellers, 15-30, 246 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Marcel Reed, not the greatest day at the office, 22 of 39, 439 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And as a team, Texas A&M just couldn't really run the football, but South Carolina could. And if I'm any team that's playing Texas A&M moving forward, run the football because they can be had. Sadly, one of the biggest pieces of news from this game didn't even take place on the field, if I'm being real with you guys. Nick Harbaugh, I guess, was confronted by a College Station police officer, like a Paul Blart, RoboCop, Mall Cop. I don't know what was said, but obviously it was something for the player to turn around. The officer was relieved of his was sent home during his shift. I will say that much. There's just no need for that. Plain and simple. I'm trying to look it up to see exactly what happened so I can. Yeah, I just want to know why. I'm watching it right here. I just want to know why, the officer just bumped into him and then made himself be the victim. He bumped into Harbaugh, if I'm being real. There's just no need for that. But back to the game, Texas A&M did come back to win this game. They were down 30-3 and won this game 31-30. And I got to give Texas A&M credit because they locked up Mike Elko to a contract extension. I have a feeling he was going to be a pretty hot commodity amongst the head coaching carousel, new jobs. I know his name was rumored to go to Penn State, but I still think Eli Drinkwitz is going to end up taking the Penn State job. He is the current coach of the Missouri Tigers. But yeah, Texas A&M is 7-0. Good fight by South Carolina, but not good enough to close out and win the game. One of the games I previewed for Saturday was Oklahoma and Alabama. Now, I remember when these two played last year, and in all my years of watching the Alabama Crimson Tide, that was hands down the worst performance I've seen. I've just never seen an Alabama team in all my years of watching them under Saban just throw the towel in. I don't even think they scored a touchdown in that game in Norman last year. What would the rematch be like? And most importantly, I've been on record to say it. I'm not going to admit to you, I was a little humbled. Alabama don't lose 2 games in a row. This time they did. I'm shocked. But I also see how good this Oklahoma Sooners defense is. And they gave Ty Simpson fits in this game. No relation. John Mateer just kind of had to control things. 15 of 23, 138 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Xavier Robinson was the leading rusher. 10 carries, 34 yards. And Jermichael Carter was your leading receiver. 3 receptions, 36 yards. Oklahoma's defense won them this game. I mean, just throwing a lot of different looks at Ty, not being able to pick him up, adjust, and yeah, Alabama really couldn't get out their own way. See what happens when you turn the ball over? Because Ty did throw a pick 6. This is a big win for Oklahoma, and Alabama can lose to the same team 2 years in a row. Oklahoma did win this game 23-21. Ty Simpson on the day. 28 carries, 28 of 42, excuse me. 326 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and Oklahoma kept Jam Miller in check. Only 9 carries, 27 yards. He can't make an impact off just 9 carries. Like, come on. Can't wait to see how Alabama goes to the drawing board. The last time Alabama lost a game, baseball season was still going on. Goes to show you how good they've been. Excuse me. Throughout this year. But they lost their first game since week 1 when they were just stunned by Florida State. Very interesting, but yeah, this is a huge win for Brent Venables and Oklahoma. Utah put up 55 on Baylor. That's crazy. Okay. Yeah, that Big 12 race is interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing Utah and Texas Tech again for the Big 12 title, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a rematch of what we saw last week. BYU, Texas Tech. The other game that I previewed, Texas, Georgia. And now with Alabama losing, Georgia can capitalize on that. I got to say this about Texas. The Longhorns, I think this stretch of games has been their best, performance-wise. The comeback in Starkville against Mississippi State. Beating Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Texas did really enter this year with extremely high and lofty expectations, but things just haven't panned out the way you hoped. Georgia, haven't really been sold on them, as many of you know, but they've still been winning and getting the job done. Yeah, listen, Gunnar Stockton is a good quarterback. Like, he does what he needs to do for this Georgia offense. And no, they're not an offense that's going to wow you. They're not an offense that's going to use explosives. They're an offense that wants to run the football, and then running the football opens up the passing lanes. In this game, Gunnar Stockton was 24 of 29. 229 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he did throw an interception. And Arch, 27 of 43, 251 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I will say, I did like the fact that Texas did try to come out and run the football, but Georgia eventually caught up to that. This game was all Georgia. Georgia dominated this game, 35-10. That's it for Texas. Can't wait to see them go back to the drawing board. And I think I said this last week or the episode before last, but Steve Sarkisian needs to let someone else call the plays, because as a head coach, you simply have to focus on the entire team, not just one side of the ball. Georgia's 9-1. It hasn't been pretty, but they're 9-1. There's really not a lot to necessarily discuss. I mean, Ohio State dominated UCLA 48-10, and I think I see Julian saying getting that invite to New York for the Heisman. That's all I pretty much have for. Oh, there's one before I get out of here and come back for the second half of the show. Michigan Northwestern. Michigan has bounced back nicely since the loss to USC. The game in Evanston was at legendary Wrigley Field. it gets no more iconic than that. You know, having lived in Illinois, I've been to Wrigley. If you enjoy historic venues like me, that's a place you need to check out. I thought Michigan was on upset alert. This had trap game written all over it. Michigan escaped with a 2-point victory, 24-22. Bryce Underwood, not the greatest stat line, 21-32, 280 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Looking at Michigan's schedule the rest of the way, they go to Maryland, then they play Ohio State, and they've won the last 4 meetings against the Ohio State Buckeyes. This year, I think it's going to be a challenge. But, yeah, Michigan, they can't overlook Maryland, because that's what a lot of teams have to do, unfortunately. That's what a lot of teams do, unfortunately. With that being said, that is all I have for college football. When I get back, we are going to look at what caught my eye in the NFL. Week 11. Insane. A lot of really interesting games on the docket with Buffalo and Tampa Bay. A preview that I just surprised and dropped. Didn't even announce it, because I thought that was just too intriguing of a game to preview. Chiefs, Denver, Lions, Eagles. Shout out to Boys to Men, Motown, Philly, and so much more. And we're going to dive right into that when I get back. This is Monday Evening Quarterback on YouTube. I'm Christian Simpson, and I will be back.